Welcome back. All right, this is part 3 of season planning. And just like last time, let's kick off by showing you how to do it. Athlete Year on a Page is going to be linked up in the video summary. And we're going to go File, make a copy, and maybe this time we just call it Your Year on a Page. We let it load up. And then we're going to adjust the date to the first Monday that you want to kick off on. So let's do that. 12/12/22. It'll update itself. And then I showed you how to do it, part 1 and part 2. So let's flip over to me. So, had a bit of news from Sweden. Looks like Colting is not sure that the 70.3 is going forward. So I'm going to drop those out. The swim run is going forward for sure. So that makes it a little easier for me. So still rolling over to Sweden. Going to do a couple swim runs, maybe adjust that. But what I wanted to talk about this time is really your winter and your base training. Now, probably the most common mistake that I see with new athletes is winter comes along, we can't go for the volume growth in the plan because we don't want to fight the weather. So we're going to smash ourselves silly for 6 to 12 weeks with a VO2 block. And you'll definitely feel like you're doing work, but you're not going to be developing yourself long term. So I got a different strategy for you that is way more effective. And it'll set you up much better than an intensity-driven winter for loading endurance come spring. So currently in December, what I'm going to be doing is focusing on increasing my frequency. So an area that I want to develop is my swimming, so I'm going to increase my swim frequency. Now you can apply the same thing to any sport because often, rather than more intense, is a time-efficient way to develop yourself. So as a runner, if you could go for an increase in your running frequency, now when you do this, when you're adding a frequency workout, my recommendation is it's half or less of your typical workout dosage. So I'll give you an example. Right now with my running, I'm tolerating 3 workouts a week with an average of 45 minutes of running each workout. So if I wanted to challenge my frequency, the way to do that would be add 1 or 2 additional workouts that are half the duration, so about 20 minutes. And you might tell yourself that it's not enough to make a difference. It's absolutely enough to make a difference, 20-minute workouts. And what I like to do is tack on these extra sessions to another one. So you might do a swim and then a run, or if it's a really cold day and your pool's outside like it is in Boulder, you might do a 20-minute jog first, warm the body up, then go do your swim. Avoid having to do 2 showers. You can run before a bike, run after a bike, depending on how you set it up. But these short workouts work best if you just combine them with something else, so it doesn't become a burden on your week. It's just a little bit of extra frequency. You get a good bang for your buck with that. The other thing is address 2 types of limiters. The first would be a current personal limiter. So that might be a flexibility limiter. You might feel like your strength is relatively weak compared to your fitness, and you might want to do a strength block where you put a lot more emphasis into getting strong. Or you might feel like, relatively speaking, you're a triathlete and your swim is letting you down a bit. Now, in season, close to your race, the swim is a relatively small portion of most events that you do. But in the winter, you're far away from your goal event. It's a great time to lock in some gains in a sport which you might be tempted to neglect once the weather's good. and you're focusing on the big picture. The final point is there's your limiters that you have today, right now, as an athlete. And there's also limiters that you're going to face in the future, that your future self is going to face. An example of that is muscle mass. If you're a relatively lean athlete, over the years and decades of endurance training, if you never strength train, very slowly at first, you're going to be losing muscle mass season in, particularly if you start running yourself a little light on calories on top of all the endurance training that you're doing. And gradually over time, you're going to whittle yourself down. So maybe not every winter, but certainly something that worked well for me is once every 5 years or so, I try and get really strong. And my buddy KP used to call it circus strength. You want to get right to the top of your category in terms of strength per weight and your absolute strength. So again, it's relative to yourself. But think about that. If you haven't gotten strong in a while, it's a really good thing you can do for your long-term health. All right. So hopefully this 3-part series has given you the information you need to lay out your year and approach your base training. So really what I'm thinking about here is December, January, February. In future editions, I'm going to talk about kind of transitioning out of that base training and how you do that once your base is very well established. But don't be in a rush to leave base. Base is really where the action is, and that's where your fitness is going to be developed. You can do it for a very long time, and it'll continue to work for many years, particularly if you're a new athlete. Okay, thanks. Hit me up in the comments if you got anything on this one.